Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're diving into the chilling story of Hallow Road, 2025, a suspense-filled thriller that explores family secrets, shocking accidents, and the terrifying consequences of one fateful night. From a heated argument at home to a dark forest accident that changes everything, this movie keeps you on the edge of your seat. Let's unravel the story, scene by scene. The movie opens around 2 a.m. inside a quiet suburban house. On the dining table, half-eaten food and a shattered glass hint at a heated argument that ended abruptly. The silence feels heavy, broken only when the smoke alarm suddenly goes off in the upstairs hallway. Inside the bedroom, Maddie wakes with a start, her face still showing traces of exhaustion. Moments later, her phone buzzes. It's her 18-year-old daughter, Alice. Their conversation makes it clear that Alice had stormed out of the house after a fight, taking her father Frank's car in anger. Maddie pleads with her to come home, but Alice hangs up, her voice sharp with frustration. Frank assumes she must have gone to her boyfriend Jacob's apartment, but to be sure, he asks Maddie to try again. This time, Alice answers in tears. Her voice trembles as she admits something terrifying: she has hit a girl with the car. She insists it wasn't intentional. The girl ran out of nowhere, straight into the road. Alice describes blood pooling beneath the victim, her chest rising and falling weakly as though she is fighting for each breath. The fear in Alice's tone rattles her parents, who immediately tell her to stay calm. Maddie, being a trained paramedic, instructs Alice to call an ambulance. Alice replies that she already has, and the paramedics will arrive in about 20 minutes. Her parents, panic rising in their voices, tell her to keep the line open as they rush out of the house and speed toward the location, a lonely stretch of road buried deep inside a forest, nearly 40 minutes away. As they drive, Alice continues speaking through broken sobs. She says the girl's eyes remain wide open, as if staring right at her, but unblinking. Maddie guides her daughter to begin CPR, carefully explaining each step. Alice obeys, pressing down on the girl's chest again and again, but nothing changes. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoes through the phone, like bones snapping. Alice screams that the girl's chest has caved in beneath her hands. Maddie tries to reassure her, begging her to keep trying until help arrives, but Frank cuts in firmly, convinced the victim is already gone. Alice hesitates, then retreats to the car as her father instructed, locking the doors and waiting in the oppressive silence of the forest. The only sounds are her ragged breathing and the faint hum of insects outside. Meanwhile, her parents argue on the drive about whether they should have made her continue CPR. Strangely, throughout all of this, the audience never sees Alice's side of the story directly, only the chilling details she shares through the phone, leaving an unsettling sense of doubt about what really happened on that dark road. As Alice continues speaking over the phone, her parents begin to think they might be able to explain everything to the police as a tragic accident. But then Alice reveals a devastating truth. After storming out of the house, she had used drugs and fallen asleep in the car. When she woke up later and started driving toward Jacob's apartment, the accident occurred. The realization crashes over her parents: Alice was driving under the influence. Even worse, they discover that Alice lied about calling the ambulance. She never made the call. All she wanted was for her parents to come and save her before anyone else found out. Maddie and Frank are horrified. Their fear for their daughter deepens, knowing this is no longer just an accident but a crime that could destroy her future. Frank, determined to protect her, decides he will take the blame when they arrive. He tells Maddie that if the police believe he was the one driving, it will appear to be nothing more than a tragic accident. Since he wasn't intoxicated, the authorities won't look deeper. Maddie, however, struggles with the idea. She fears that shielding Alice from the consequences will only encourage her to keep making reckless mistakes. Still, with no other option and precious time slipping away, the couple resign themselves to Frank's plan, their car speeding through the night as tension thickens between them. In the midst of their desperation, the deeper reason for the family's earlier argument is revealed. The fight at the dining table wasn't only about Alice storming out, it was about her pregnancy. Alice wants to keep the baby, but her parents had insisted she terminate the pregnancy, believing she's too young and unprepared for such responsibility. They want her to focus on her future, her education, and her career. That painful clash had driven Alice to grab her father's car and vanish into the forest roads. As Maddie and Frank push toward her location, Alice suddenly whispers that she sees headlights approaching from down the road. Alarmed, Frank urges her to quickly drag the girl's body into the bushes and hide it before the other car arrives. Trembling, Alice does as he says, her sobs audible over the line. Maddie, however, is still torn, horrified at the thought of teaching her daughter to bury her mistakes rather than face them. But before she can argue further, Alice's voice shifts, trembling with fear. In a quivering whisper, She tells them something that makes their blood run cold. Suddenly, Alice screams over the phone, claiming that the girl's face is changing before her eyes. Terrified, she bolts from the scene. Then, a new, chilling voice cuts through the call. An older woman, accompanied by her husband, has arrived at the site in their car. At first, the couple speaks to Alice gently, asking why she is alone in the middle of a dark forest at this hour. Alice explains that her parents are on their way to pick her up and urges the woman to leave. But the woman does not budge. Her tone slowly hardens, and she begins interrogating Alice, judging her responses and pressing her for answers. It quickly becomes clear to the woman that Alice is still under the influence. Realizing the danger, Maddie pleads over the phone, convincing the woman to leave, and she finally starts to drive away. Just as relief seems near, Alice panics once more. She has seen the girl's body hidden in the bushes. The older woman notices it too and, in a frantic attempt to escape, tries to drive off. Maddie shouts through the phone, ordering Alice not to move, but before she can react, a loud crash echoes from the other side. The woman smashes Alice's car window. Alice screams in terror, and the call abruptly ends. When they finally reconnect with her, Alice's voice is calmer, though still shaken. The older woman has apparently taken only Alice's car keys, leaving her and the girl behind. The parents, holding their breath, realize the night has become far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Their daughter is trapped between the forest, the accident, and an unknown couple with unclear intentions. The older woman explains that she had broken Alice's car window only to prevent her from panicking and hurting herself. But now, she begins threatening to call the authorities. Frank tries to reason with her, insisting it was just an accident, but she refuses to listen. She claims the girl Alice hit is still alive, and that her husband is taking care of her. At this point, Frank decides to tell the truth. He reveals that he and Maddie had planned to take full responsibility for Alice's mistake, intending to shield their daughter at all costs. Hearing this, the woman seems to understand their intentions and hands the phone back to Alice. Maddie uses the moment to share a personal truth with her daughter. As a paramedic, she once misdiagnosed a patient's pulmonary embolism as a panic attack, which led to the patient's death. Though she faced no blame officially, she resigned from her job, feeling responsible for the mistake. Maddie tells Alice that sometimes, mistakes happen unintentionally, and it's how one chooses to take responsibility that defines them. Alice listens and, for the first time, accepts her accountability. She promises her parents that she will take responsibility for what happened and tell the woman the full truth. Minutes later, Frank and Maddie arrive at the accident site along the deserted Hallow Road, surrounded by the dense forest. Alice is nowhere to be seen. The mysterious couple has also vanished. Near a thicket, they spot two legs protruding from the bushes and assume it is the injured girl Alice had described. Maddie immediately calls emergency services and begins explaining the situation. But as Frank approaches, horror grips him. The body is not the girl's. It is Alice herself. Shock paralyzes both parents as they realize their daughter has died. Maddie refuses to accept it, unable to comprehend how Alice could be gone. In that moment, a terrible suspicion arises. Perhaps Alice orchestrated a trap or misled them, but the truth is far grimmer than they could have imagined. As the night drags on, the older woman calls Alice again. Surprisingly, Alice answers. Over the phone, her parents can hear both Alice and the woman speaking. Fear grips them. They are convinced Alice has been kidnapped and that she hasn't gone far. Determined, Frank and Maddie drive deeper into the dense forest, following the trail as they hear the voices over the line. On the call, the woman begins lecturing not just Alice but her parents as well. She claims that she and her husband are now Alice's true guardians, insisting they will teach her to accept her mistakes and guide the future of her unborn child. The parents, heartbroken, hear their daughter's cries through the phone as they push deeper into the dark forest, powerless to reach her in time. The trees seem to close in around them, shadows twisting with the flickering light of their headlights, adding to the sense of helplessness and dread. Suddenly, a police car appears on the road, blocking their path, the very car they themselves had called earlier. Maddie pleads with the woman to release Alice, but before anything can happen, a piercing scream cuts through the phone, and the line goes dead. Silence follows, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the wind rustling through the trees. The scene then shifts to the following morning, at the same location where Frank and Maddie had earlier discovered what they believe to be the injured girl. Police have cordoned off the area, investigating the body, while Alice's parents sit in silence in the nearby ambulance, devastated. Authorities theorize that Alice, intoxicated, crashed her car into a tree during the night. When she exited the vehicle, another car might have struck her in the darkness. The police remain skeptical of the parents' claims that they had been in constant phone contact with Alice and even witnessed the events unfold. To them, it seems like a desperate performance, a fragile attempt by grieving parents to cope with the shock and loss of their daughter. The forest remains quiet now, but the memory of that night lingers like a shadow. Mist clings to the trees, and the faint outline of Hallow Road disappears into the distance, leaving behind more questions than answers. The parents sit in silent despair, haunted by the possibility that the events they experienced were far stranger, and far darker, than anyone could comprehend. With this ambiguous and unresolved ending, the movie closes, leaving viewers to ponder the terrifying mistakes, the lies, and the heartbreak that no one could fully prevent. And that's the haunting tale of Hallow Road. A night that began as a family conflict spiraled into chaos, fear, and heartbreak, leaving questions unanswered and secrets exposed. What would you have done in their place? If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more thrilling movie stories and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next chilling adventure.